Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. Happy Sunday. It is the fifth Sunday of Lent. And believe it or not, y'all, next Sunday is Palm Sunday. So that means 2 weeks, a fortnight from today, is Easter Sunday. So where has the time gone? Which is what I say most of the time because a lot of the time I'm running late. And today I am recording this before I get out the door to go to church. So, going to keep this kind of short. Wanted to do something special for this video this morning. It isn't coming together, but on a future video, it's going to be a little different, I hope, anyway. So, let's begin as we always begin, recognizing, realizing, celebrating, and living our lives every moment, every breath, from the reality that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So I want to, before we talk about the psalm and the gospel for today, I want to just say a quick word about Robert Mueller, who died yesterday, and the service that he provided to this country. I know he was a controversial figure when he did the Mueller report and the things that came out with that. But he served this country. I don't know if you saw his earlier days before he was FBI director. He was a decorated warrior. He served this country. He volunteered to go to Vietnam. He could have gotten out of it, but he volunteered and had a very just very honorable service for his career, all the way through his career. And I think it just underscores how vile it is that what T. Rump had to say in that message he sent out yesterday. I mean, we are just dealing with some just reprehensible human beings here. And when we see honor and service and dedication and duty compared to absolute, just vile, sociopathic, narcissistic, yeah, again, I got to break out the thesaurus. I mean, we're entering a place where words fall short of what we are seeing. So just wanted to give that little bit of a shout out there. Today's liturgical gospel is a very powerful one. It is the gospel of the raising of Lazarus, and there's so much that can be said about this. In fact, one of my favorite authors, Father Jim Martin, SJ, Jesuit father, maybe you've seen him around. He is often on the Colbert Show, at least used to be on the Colbert Show. I haven't seen him lately, but he kind of was the chaplain of that show for a while. And he wrote an entire book on just that story, the story that we're going to be hearing and praying with and celebrating this week. And I think there's so much in that story. And what I love about it, I think what comes to mind first and foremost today is Jesus's compassion, his empathy. You know, it's well known that the shortest verse in the Gospels is there. Jesus wept, right? And he weeps because his two friends, Mary and Martha, who we meet elsewhere in the Gospels, and it's their brother Lazarus who has died. Martha has already kind of in the story has already kind of chastised him and kind of been very direct. And then Mary, again, who is the more contemplative, the one who sits at Jesus's feet while he is in their home, she says very bluntly, she says, you know, if you had been here, he would not have died, showing her faith in Jesus's powers of healing, and Jesus weeps at that, right? He weeps. And again, y'all, we're living in an era where there are far too many so-called Christians. I always got to put the scare quotes for that, who say that empathy is bad, or empathy is evil, or empathy is blah blah blah. I mean, it's garbage, absolute garbage, because there is no greater empathetic figure in anywhere in the Bible, probably in human history, really, than Jesus of Nazareth, right? And we see that Jesus wept. I always kind of wished that when the Holy Spirit led the evangelists to write the Gospels, there was more description of Jesus's physicality, right? We see him doing physical things, breaking and spitting into the mud and rubbing it on eyes. But I really wish we had Jesus laughed, or Jesus, Jesus got, some kind of a physical type of thing, right? The one that we have is Jesus wept. And I think that's far, far more significant and important for us than really just about anything else that could have been in there. And then lastly, how Jesus frees Lazarus. Lazarus, come forth. And, again, I believe that Jesus is always calling us forth from wherever we are stuck, wherever we are broken, wherever parts of us have died or have been enslaved. Jesus says, come forth, be free, right? The psalm for today is Psalm 81. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I did, as I was reading it, was struck by the beginning of it, this joyful celebration at the beginning. So I'm just going to read the first 3 verses here. Sing with glad hearts to Creator, our strong warrior chief. Raise a victorious war cry to the great spirit of our ancestor, heel grabber. Sing with loud honor beats on the hand drum. Let the sweet sound of the flute fill the air. Sound the eagle bone whistle, for the new moon festival has begun. Under the full moon, we will dance for joy. And the footnote there says that the eagle bone whistle is the shofar, is kind of the description of that. I think what struck me there is the new moon festival, right? And, on a lunar calendar, and again, even today, the Jewish people and the Muslim people are on lunar calendars. So their month begins when the new moon begins, and the full moon is the fruition, the halfway point of that. And, it's kind of interesting because, full moons are so dramatic and they're so clear, right? Each month has a traditional name for the full moon. You've probably seen those. But the new moon is much more significant. And just this last week, just a few days ago, Ramadan ended when the crescent after the new moon was first seen. So you can't see the new moon, of course, because the earth is completely in the shadow but the earth is between the moon and the sun when the new moon is happening. And, but what we see is the crescent, the first bit of the new waxing moon that comes out. And again, for planetary pilgrims, we who mark our lives and our journey and our groundedness as earthlings, as planetary pilgrims, the moon cycle is so valuable and so important and so grounding to our ancestors, to indigenous people, to other faith traditions. Again, of the 3 most significant Western or monotheistic faith traditions, it's only Christianity that really doesn't pay too much attention to the moon. Although, last little fact here before we wrap up, Easter, of course, has to do with the moon cycle, right? Easter falls on the Sunday after the first full moon of the spring tide, right? So that's why it moves from year to year, because the moon itself changes from year to year. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to wrap this up. I got to get out the door. Let's just end with our briefest of prayers, the serenity prayer. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not ours, be done. All right, y'all, thanks for watching or listening, whatever it may be. Blessing and good, be bold, be well, hold fast, y'all.